I'm almost at a complete loss for words as far as this movie goes. I don't know how to review it. And I know movie reviews are typically not my thing. That's not usually what this channel is dedicated to. But this is the first time in a long time where I can recall watching a movie and I legitimately don't know how to process everything. And I don't know how to put into words how I feel about this movie. It's so odd. And I will say this. In my preview, I said that I wanted Rian Johnson, the director, to take the franchise in a new direction, take some risks, and kind of turn the franchise upside down. He did that. He absolutely did that. So in that case, I got exactly what I wanted. And, man, I don't even know where to start. All I do know is that I've got myself a cup of coffee, and I have mixed it with Jack Daniels. So, actually, let me put a little bit more in there. Gonna need it. Gonna need it. Alright. I mean, damn, that's good. This movie was unlike... I mean, okay, for those of you that were worried about this being a rehash of The Empire Strikes Back, don't you worry. It's not that. It's straight up not that. It was such a... There's so much stuff going on in this movie, and they do come up with a lot of new things, and they do take certain things in a new direction, and I don't even know what to say, to be perfectly honest. The reaction to this movie is unlike anything I'd ever seen for Star Wars or anything else. The critical reaction has been very positive. It has like a 93-something score on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics. Also on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is like 56. People are... And it's not even like a 50-50 split. It's a... Some people loved it and think it's the best Star Wars movie ever. Some people think it's the best one since Empire. Some people think it's good, not great. Some people think it's mediocre. Some people think it's heavily flawed and a huge step down from Episode 7. Some people think it's worse than the prequels. I talked to my sister today. She fucking hated it and told me she thinks it's the worst Star Wars movie ever made. I'm not in that camp. I was overall happy with the film, and many of the risks it took I felt paid off, and they did things that I enjoyed. However, in talking to some of my friends about it, the group of friends I was with last night when we saw the movie, we all liked it, but we also had a talk afterwards. It's like, okay, the people that are hating on this movie, I know exactly why they're hating on this movie. This is not like Episode 7, which was almost like a factory assembly line packaged and designed to be an audience-pleasing, crowd-pleaser type of movie. Like, people have accused the Marvel movies of being that. Episode 7 could give lessons to Marvel about how to be a audience-pleasing, make the people happy, get them clapping type of movie. And I enjoy Episode 7. I gave it a good review at the time. I felt that the criticism that it was just A New Hope again was extremely valid. And I think that's the thing that holds it down significantly and keeps it from being on par with the original trilogy. Although at this point, I'm kind of like, nothing is going to be on par with the original trilogy. You can't. It's untouchable. It's you just can't be done. But while I did enjoy The Force Awakens, I acknowledged all the problems with it, namely being it's just a nostalgia fest. And it was designed to be that just to make people happy. And if that's all you need, that's great. I've rewatched the movie a couple of times. I'm perfectly fine watching it again. It's not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also a very safe movie, and it was very calculated in how safe it was going to be. This movie is not safe. This movie was not safe at all, and I kind of love it. I kind of love that they took as many risks that they did, and they did certain things that seemed to piss people off. And again, I don't even know where to start, but I guess this goes without saying, there will be spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, turn this video off right now, because I'm going to go off on one, and I'm going to... Oh boy, I guess we could start by talking about the Force powers. A lot of people seem to be talking about that, and how this movie expanded the abilities of the Force, namely, Kylo Ren and Rey get like a psychic link. with each other and are actually able to converse with each other through the Force, despite being millions and billions of miles away from each other through the entire film up until they meet later on at a very crucial scene. And what are some other ones? There's Force projection, where in the film's climax, Luke Skywalker is actually able to project his image to distract the First Order while the rebels are able to get away. There's various things like that where they really expand on the powers and the abilities of the Force. Some people were not happy with this. I was completely fine with it because I'm used to Force powers just being invented with no explanation of how they're able to do that, because I just assume it's like, the Force and the whole Jedi religion, it's all about training and faith. Those are like the hallmarks of the Jedi religion, and the abilities of the Jedi are constantly evolving, and there's new abilities coming up all the time. And again, this comes from me reading the expanded universe. They were like inventing all sorts of Force powers, like Force healing and Force nap time, which is what I like to call it, where they like go into like their self-induced Force coma to like regain their energy, and it's part of the healing process or whatever. I like to call that Force nap time. There's Force disguise, where in one book, The Crystal Star, which is not the best Star Wars book, admittedly, but Luke is able to like change his appearance to hide his true identity and various things like that. But so I'm used to new Force abilities being invented, and even in the original movies, think back to any Force power that's ever been in the original trilogy, whether it be the mind trick or Force lightning or Force push or levitation or whatever. Do they ever explain any of those powers? No. That's just Force choking. They never explain how that works or how Vader's able to do it. You just kind of accept it because, oh, that's what Jedis can do. That's what Force users can do. And those powers are constantly evolving. And I like that this movie created new Force powers. And I kind of like that whole aspect, again, expanding what the Force can do. And I like the Kylo and Rey scenes. I thought that they, I liked their relationship and their whole, like, I ended up liking both characters a lot more in this film. And I think they're rising as kind of representatives of the avatars of the light and the dark side of the Force that were strengthened in this film. And the understanding of both characters was strengthened in this film as well. And I really like those scenes. And I like the scenes of Rey interacting with Luke, who I loved in this movie. I loved curmudgeon, old, broken down, guilty Luke. And it was all the more satisfying when the old Luke would come out. Like in the scene where he reunites with R2, you'd seen like grumpy, curmudgeon-y Luke living on his island, which, as he said, is like, I'm here to die. And that's really all I'm here to do. It's all the more satisfying when the old Luke comes out. Like, again, in the scene with R2, where it almost feels like 30 years just wash away when he meets up with R2 again. And various other things like that. So I really liked Mark Hamill in this movie. I like Carrie Fisher in this movie as well. We get to see Leia use the Force for the first time in a scene that is also getting made fun of. And I can see why. It was a little hokey. It felt like something out of a Bryan Singer Superman movie, the way it was done. I like the idea behind the scene. I would have done it, again, like I'm a star filmmaker or something, but I would have done it in a way that was a little bit more urgent and like maybe, you know, the part of the ship gets blown up and she's hovering in space. And instead of like doing the whole levitation thing to get to the door to get back onto the ship, I would have done something like, okay, she uses the Force to like pull an oxygen mask to her. She puts it on and she's like, make it more desperate, maybe, instead of like the whole like almost heavenly body like pulling towards the ship or whatever. But I like the idea behind the scene. I like that kind of Force abilities in Leia get awoken when she's like, you know, in a very desperate situation and kind of like a cornered animal, like, you know, where it unleashes like the raw strength. And I kind of, I like the idea behind the scene is basically what I'm saying. I think it could have been executed better, but I like that we got to see Leia use Force powers anyway. And I liked her throughout the movie. I thought she was really good. A nice send-off for Carrie Fisher. It's unfortunate she won't be returning for episode 9 giving her untimely passing. But in this movie, you get to see, like, what made Leia so great and why I like that character so much. Like, she commands so much authority. And you kind of, in this movie, more so than Force Awakens, you kind of believe that she would be in charge of this military force. And, you know, God, there's so much to talk about in this movie. I don't even know if I'm going to get through everything, but, what else is there to really talk about? Oh yeah, the big reveals. The reveals. Some people, and I think this is the major reason why so many people are, like, split on this movie, and why some people fucking hated it. All the talk of all the theories about who Snoke is, and who Rey's parents are, and they amounted to nothing. Kylo Ren kills Snoke in this big scene that might have been my favorite scene in the movie, where it looks like Rey and Kylo Ren are going to join forces, and they take out the Emperor, or fuck it, he's the Emperor. That's what he's supposed to be. They take out the Emperor's guards, which I thought was a great action scene, very well done, and there was this satisfaction out of seeing them team up. Throughout the entire movie, they keep talking to each other through the force link that they have with each other, and to see them team up, it was like this big, like, fuck yeah moment. I really liked how that scene played out, but so many people are pissed that Snoke meant nothing. I loved it. I love that Snoke amounted to nothing, because I hated that character. I hated that he was just a rehash of the Emperor. I felt he was completely unnecessary, and it turns out he was just a red herring to allow Kylo Ren to ascend and gain more power and ultimately take over and become the big bad. Which is ultimately what happens, as Rey and Ren's partnership ended up not working out, but as Kylo basically just took the whole thing as an opportunity to take over, and now it's like, look, the Jedi, the past needs to die, which is one of the themes in this film. It's like, the past is the past, and you need to move on and grow and develop, and Kylo's kind of the bad side of that, where it's like he wants to erase everything and just shape everything in his own image. And I like that theme throughout the movie, and there was actually a really nice scene between Luke and a Force Ghost Yoda, which was a nice surprise. Even though CGI Yoda looked a little shaky, to put it mildly, and he looked bad in the first shot, and then the rest of the scene he looked okay. So I don't know what happened in that first shot, but maybe I just needed to get used to it. I don't know, and I just did, but in the shots as they keep talking, maybe it was Frank Oz's voice that helped fix it for me. I don't know, but they talk about how it's like it's time to let go and let the future kind of evolve. And I thought that whole scene was very nice and played out very well. And it was just nice to see Yoda again. And he was very much like what I liked about the character in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, where he's kind of playful but very wise. And he's like, oh, young Skywalker, how I've missed you. And he talks about the Jedi text. And it's like, did you read all of those? And Luke's like, I skimmed through it. He's like, yeah, they're not page turners. And stuff like that. But yeah, I really liked that scene. I liked, like I said, but again, going back to Snoke, I hated that they had this Emperor stand-in that I felt was completely pointless. And with all the theories, like, oh, he's Darth Plagueis, he's Mace Windu, he's Jar Jar Binks, blah, 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 all this other stuff. And I'd heard he was Tarkin at one point. And my theory that I kind of wanted them to do was, it's like, look, he's not a Force user, he's the Wizard of Oz. He's a charlatan, a liar, and a con artist, and he's just perpetuating the image of this dark side user because he feels that rallies the troops. Kind of like what the Emperor did. And it gives the First Order somebody to rally behind. And he's just a fraud. And he was able to trick Kylo Ren using pretty words and false wisdom and maybe a couple of Sith teachings that he picked up here and there to kind of tell him about, but not actually demonstrate his real power because he has no power. They didn't do that. I kind of would have liked that if they did, but ultimately he was just a red herring, and we don't find out who he is, and Kylo just kills him, and I was like, I'm cool with this. I'm completely fine with this. I'm totally great, because I don't need to know who Snoke is, because he's a character I felt shouldn't have existed. And again, I talked to my sister about this, and she's like, but yeah, in the first movie, there's all this mystery surrounding him, and I'm like, I don't care who he was. I don't. And that's the very interesting thing about this movie. It felt very reactionary to The Force Awakens, where the people that hate this movie seem to be basing it on how it connects to The Force Awakens. And they're talking about, like, the mystery of Rey's parents and Snoke. And I guess I'll talk about Rey's parents, too. Turns out, they're just junkers from Jakku. They're nobodies. But again, I like that because it allowed Kylo Ren this moment where he was able to kind of put Rey down. It's like, look, your parents are nobodies. You have no place in the story. Your only option is to join me. That's how you will achieve some kind of meaningfulness in this world and find your place in all of this. And it allowed that kind of dickhead, and like, it almost felt like a dagger going right into her. It's like, wow, ooh, dude. But I like that because all the mysteries that are set up in Force Awakens, it felt like J.J. Abrams was trying to set up creation of the I am your father moment. The problem, though, the reason why the I am your father moment worked is because we didn't know there was a mystery. We didn't know that this was a twist that was coming. And it's kind of like, I'll use M. Night Shyamalan as an example. The reason The Sixth Sense worked for people and why that twist worked is because they did not advertise that there was a twist. Not initially. Not until after it became famous. And they're like, the twist you won't see coming. Go see the twist that everybody's talking about. Which kind of spoils that there's a twist. But when that movie first came out, nobody knew how it was going to turn out. Nobody knew. So when the twist happens, it's like, what the hell? Because we didn't know that a twist was coming. Compare that to Shyamalan's other films, which got increasingly stupid anyway. But they were advertising the movies as, there's a twist you won't see coming. Hey, newsflash, by telling me there's a twist, I'm going to see the twist coming because I'm expecting a goddamn twist. And by setting up all these mysteries and all these questions or whatever about Rey and about Snoke, those were the two big ones. There's nothing you can do that would shock me. Because every theory had been proposed online and between people just talking about it. And they didn't do that in the original Star Wars. There was no mystery about Luke's father. Obi-Wan tells you everything you need to know in A New Hope. He was a Jedi Knight. Darth Vader killed him. Darth Vader was a pupil of mine who turned to evil. Boom. Told you everything you need to know. And then in Empire Strikes Back, they twist it by having Vader reveal, no, Obi-Wan lied to you. I'm your papa. And that's why it worked. It was a mystery box that we didn't even know existed, and they opened it. By setting up so many questions with so many mysteries, I mean, there's nothing they could have done that would have been shocking. There's literally nothing. We were just waiting for Rey to be connected to the Kenobis or to Palpatine or to Luke or to Han and Leia. It was going to be one of those things. So by not doing that, that's actually more shocking to me. And it actually it gets rid of the whole problem of like, man, this galaxy is really small because everybody's related. So it gets rid of that problem. And by this point in the movie, I kind of bought the whole, like, Ren and Rey kind of yin and yang, where they kind of represent avatars of, like, the dark and the light side of the Force, and they get more powerful as the other one gets more powerful. And it was almost like Rey is like, her place in this world is that she was created almost as like a reaction to the rising darkness of the First Order and Kylo Ren's ascension. And I kind of liked how that all played out. And I liked that they kind of like took all those theories and just threw them in the garbage can. And again, I never gave a shit about Snoke. And actually the way it played out, I kind of liked, because we all kind of assumed that Kylo Ren was a Vader fanboy trying to be like his granddad. The way this movie kind of played out, the way Snoke talks, is like, I think Snoke was the Vader fanboy. Kylo Ren was his attempt at trying to recreate Darth Vader. And I think he was the Sith fanboy all along. So maybe, because and one of the reasons I didn't like the Snoke character in Force Awakens is that I was kind of hoping Kylo Ren would be like a self-taught Sith. that kind of picked up the stuff on his own through ancient texts and just through hearing about his grandfather and all these other things. But Snoke just kind of like makes it, oh, it's the Emperor again, whatever. But the way Snoke talks in this movie, it's like, I think he was the Vader fanboy, and Kylo Ren is like his attempt at trying like a Darth Vader creator wrestler. And there is one funny moment where he tells Kylo Ren to take the ridiculous mask off, which really reminded me of Spaceballs. Never have that damn thing down in front of me. I don't know you're not making faces at me out of that thing. But yeah, I actually kind of liked how everything played out with Snoke. And again, if he's Darth Plagueis or if he's Tarkin or Mace Windu or whatever, to me it doesn't change the fact that he's just the big bad that's being the Emperor again. And if he is one of those pre-existing characters, oh great, you're undoing a death from a previous character and kind of cheating the previously established mythology. And it's like, oh, Darth Plagueis was really alive. It's like, great, you're ruining the best scene from the prequels. So great. But, so yeah, I actually kind of liked that they took all those fan theories and just kind of threw them in the garbage can. I kind of liked it, and some people said it's like, well, we didn't get answers. And I'm like, well, with Snoke, I didn't care if we got answers because I didn't like that character. And with Rey, we did get an answer. It's just not what you wanted. And I kind of liked how it played out. So I didn't have a problem with that. Just my take. But what else is there to really talk about? There's a lot to talk about, but I guess I could talk about the major subplot that a lot of people didn't like, the Canto Blight with Finn and Rose and BB-8. I understand, yes, that I felt like those scenes went a little too long. They could have shortened that, and I didn't like the casino looked a little too grounded on Earth. Like it looked like something that could have existed on Earth with a couple of wacky creatures thrown in, and it's not like the cantina in the original movie, and it's not like Jabba's palace, which looked totally alien, but great. This was just, it felt kind of contemporary, and I was like, I don't know, and it's like, even John Williams' music, which you listen to the Cantina jazzy theme from the original, and you listen to Jabba's Palace music, and it's kind of like, those sound alien. This just kind of feels like something that could have been on Earth. And Maz's bar from Force Awakens was that way too, so I don't know if that's... and again, you look at the prequels in the 50s diner and various other things, so it's like... They've never been able to recapture that, but they keep trying. God damn it, do they keep trying. But they've never been able to recapture that, and I don't know why. Maybe the original trilogy is just unattainable, and that's like the microcosm of that. I don't know, but... what else? I thought the action sequences were very well handled and very dramatic, and that's the thing about this movie. You really do feel like... whenever there's a death or whenever like somebody's in trouble, you really do feel like they were in trouble throughout the movie. And the spaceship battles are really well done from that aspect. And I thought the two climaxes, because this film really does feel like it has two climaxes, but done very well. It's like a Wrestle Kingdom double main event in a way. You get the big space battle with the Resistance running away, and then you get the ground battle on the red salt planet, which looked great. I thought like the whole image of the red salt really added great visuals. And that's another thing I liked about this film. Some very well-directed scenes where it did invoke kind of a Kurosawa level imagery, which I also really liked. Again, I thought Rian Johnson brought a very unique flavor to how this thing was shot. But I guess I'll go back to the Canto Blight sequences that nobody liked that much. I didn't mind the subplot that much, but I did agree they went too long, and the casino itself could have been better. I think a way that could have improved that as well, there were running themes throughout the entire movie about like old and new coming together. You've got Kylo Ren with Snoke, who's kind of the old guy, who's basically just a stand-in for the Emperor, and their disagreements. You've got Rey and Luke and their disagreements, and how they have to kind of reconcile, and how that ends. You've got Poe, who was much better in this film than he was in the last film, I thought. A much more interesting character, and he actually has an arc, and he actually learns a lesson at the end, and this is part of the lesson, because you kind of think that one of the major things in this movie is to kind of let the past die and move on, but there's kind of that, like, take the value from the past and kind of apply it to help evolve. And kind of the lesson that Poe learns is kind of listen to his superiors and kind of trust in them and learn from them and not be such a hothead that blows everything up. And he butts heads with Leia. He butts heads with the Laura Dern character, who she's not bad, but I kind of wish, instead of creating a new character, I kind of wish they had just used Admiral Akbar in that role. I think it would have been great to kind of give Admiral Akbar actually like a role instead of killing him off screen. I was like, look, I know Admiral Akbar was never a major character, but he is a fan favorite. It's like, come on, you could have put Admiral Akbar in that role, right? I'm just saying, instead of killing him off screen, I was so sad. It's like, why'd you go in and kill Admiral Akbar? It's a wrap, I guess. but anyway, I liked Poe's whole arc, and I thought that played off really well. I did enjoy that, and how he kind of had to learn to kind of take a lesson from the old guys while also still, like, there's still that, like, need to move forward while also keeping kind of, like, listening to your elders as well. So I kind of like that. So you had all that constant theme throughout the movie where it's like the old and new kind of clashing and having to come to a compromise or come to a common understanding. The Canto Blight stuff did not have that. It was just the Resistance guys on a mission to save the Resistance in this way. That was fine, and it fits within the overall narrative, but again, it went a little too long, and then it went into kind of this like save the animals thing that felt a little misplaced, and I felt it could have been handled better. I don't think the actor, what's her name, I forget the actress's name who plays Rose, she doesn't do a bad job. I just don't think the character's entirely necessary, and I think a way that could have fixed those scenes and kind of keep that common theme going if Threepio had gone with them and kind of lend his expertise to the scene and use that he can... Because Threepio, who I really liked in this movie, the few scenes that he's in, he has a brief interaction with Luke that's great. And here's the only interaction they have in the film. It's at the very end. He looks at Luke and goes, "Master Luke." And Mark Hamill just turns to him, winks, and just walks off. And I'm like, that was perfect. That was just so perfect. And it actually kind of got me choked up a little bit. Just his... Master Luke, and it's like, oh, 3PO, you darling little droid, you. But no, I thought for the brief moments he had, I thought he was really good, and like most of the old cast has their like little fun moments. Chewie interacts with the Porgs a lot, which is interesting, and for all the talk of like, and all the outrage over the Porgs, they amount to nothing in the movie. They literally are just window dressing. They are just there to be cute little animals in the background or in the foreground. That's all they are. They don't fit into the story at all. They're just there to be cute and possibly to sell toys. But people compared them to the Ewoks, and I was like, first of all, I like the Ewoks, motherfucker. Don't diss the Ewoks. They're great in Return of the Jedi. I don't care what anybody says. Second of all, that outrage was for nothing because the Porks didn't do hardly anything, and actually had one of the funniest jokes in the movie. There's a scene with Chewie where he's cooking one. But he can't eat it while all the other Porgs are watching him, which was pretty good. But yeah, the Canto Blight sequences, I think if they had added 3PO into those sequences, it would have had that theme, because you have the old guard, C-3PO from the original movies, interacting with the newer guys and the new droid in BB-8. And I think, they're kind of like the bottom rung. You've got kind of this lowly ship worker in Rose, and you've got Finn, who's kind of the outcast from the First Order, still trying to find a place in the Resistance. And we got BB-8, who's the new droid, and as we all know in Star Wars, droids are bottom of the barrel. And C-3PO, he's a droid who's bottom of the barrel. I think adding him to those sequences, shortening it, changing the set a little bit to be a little bit more alien, and a couple tweaks here and there would have fixed those scenes, I think. I think those scenes would have worked better had 3PO had been there and fit into that side of the story. And again, if they had shortened it and done a few other things. But I didn't hate those sequences as much as everybody else seemed to, and I didn't think it halted the film like a lot of people think. I don't know. I thought the pacing of the film was fine. It was a 2.5 hour film that I didn't feel like, because so much was happening, I never felt like the movie was slowing down. I felt like it was just this barrage of information and scenes and characters and everything, and it went so fast for me personally, but I enjoyed it. What else? Goddamn. I talked a little bit about the Force powers. I like the Force powers. I like that the Force evolved. I like that Rian Johnson actually took the effort to try and, again, come up with something new to do with the Force, which is not uncommon in Star Wars to try and cook up new Force powers. Happened in Return of the Jedi with Force Lightning. It happens in the books all the time with Force Healing and Force Nap Time, which is what I like to call it, where they kind of go into that Force-induced coma where they rejuvenate themselves. I call it Force Nap Time because it's funny. And I'm a goddamn comedian. At least that's how I feel after mixing caffeine with booze. So I liked a lot of that. I liked the psychic link between Rey and Ren. I liked I guess I'll talk about Force projection. At the end of the movie, there's this great climactic scene where Luke Skywalker appears on the planet out of nowhere, and he stares down the First Order, finally agreeing to help after the little pep talk with Ghost Yoda. He finally agrees to help and is staring down the First Order, giving the Resistance time to get away. Which is where Poe has his realization. It's like, look, he's doing this for a reason. We need to get away. And let's take a cue from the Master and just do what he says. And it's this awesome, like, old-school samurai scene where it's just Luke and a bunch of AT-AT walkers, and Kylo tells everything they have to just fire on that man, and then he emerges from the debris of being fired on completely unscathed. And then Kylo goes to face him one-on-one, again on this red salt planet, which created so many great visuals in the scene. And turns out that Luke wasn't really there. He was projecting his image through the Force onto the planet to serve as a distraction, which I thought was great and made a lot of sense within the context of the film, because they did set up that Luke had an X-Wing on the planet, but it was also underwater, and God knows how long that thing had been down there, and God knows if that thing even works anymore. So I bought that. I bought that. It would be quicker for Luke to just project his image at the cost of his own life and becoming one with the Force. Which that last scene was great, where Luke faded away, saw the dual sunset one more time as the music played and faded away. That was outstandingly well done. Probably the best directed and put together moment in the whole film. There's a lot of really good moments here, and yeah, I'm trying to think of things that. Again, going back to The Force Awakens, how this film very much feels like a reaction to it. The scene with Phasma fighting Finn, I thought was a well-done fight scene, and I liked it. I could have done without the Rebel Scum quip. That was a little cheesy, but I like that whole fight scene. I like that BB-8 got a hero moment and everything out of it. BB-8's great, by the way. I like BB-8 a lot. But that scene would have played so much better had Phasma not been punked out in Force Awakens. Had Phasma been presented like a threat in Force Awakens and been awesome in Force Awakens, like they advertised her to be, and then in this movie she goes out in this big fight scene, it would have been great. Instead, she just kind of gets beat by Finn, and so you kind of interpret it, oh, she just got bitched out again. I'm like, well, if she hadn't been bitched out in the first movie, that would have been a great fight scene, but and again, that's kind of like, I think The Force Awakens is affecting a lot of people's enjoyment of this film. You have people who thought lesser of that movie and are kind of like, oh my god, this movie fixed all the shit in Force Awakens. And you have other people who are like, yeah, but Force Awakens set all this stuff up, and now this movie is changing everything. So it's like the movies don't connect all that well, which I agree with that, but I'm kind of more in the camp of like, yeah, this movie fixed everything from The Force Awakens. That's kind of how I'm looking at it, but I'm trying to think of some other things. Like, I thought Leia was great in this movie. I kind of talked about that already. Everything that I loved about Princess Leia is kind of in this movie. I think her Superman Force scene could have been done a little bit better. I would have done it, again, like, I know what I'm doing. I think they could have done it in a way that didn't look like it came out of a Bryan Singer Superman movie, but and instead do it in a more desperate and like maybe force pull the oxygen mask to her. But I like the idea behind the scene, and but overall, I thought Princess Leia was a great presence in the film, and it was great to see her. And you know, I don't know how they're going to cover up for Carrie Fisher's passing in Episode 9, but it was great to see Carrie Fisher kind of shine one last time. And some of her scenes were a little hard to watch for obvious reasons, but her reunion with Luke, brief as it was also nice to see. And right before Luke has his badass showdown. Yeah, so for all the talk that Luke Skywalker's character got ruined, he got an awesome send-off, like an awesome like hero moment. So I liked it. I liked it. So yeah, I'd say I liked more of this movie than I disliked. I wouldn't put it up there with the original trilogy, because as I've said, nothing touches the original trilogy, and I stand by that. But I respect this movie for taking a lot of risks. It's almost like they did these things knowing that people were going to react. Some people were going to react the way they did. And I liked that this movie took risks. And I felt like the risks paid off, at least for me. And, goddamn, there's still so much that I haven't covered in this whole, like, just rambling affair. But I guess overall what I'm trying to say is I did enjoy The Last Jedi. I respect what it tried to do more than what Force Awakens tried to do, which was just to be a safe, audience-pleasing movie. This movie tried to be something vastly different, and I like that, and for me, at least, it paid off, and I thought the cast, for the most part, was very, very good. Again, not everything's perfect, but the stuff that was good was really, really good, and kept me interested. And the last, like, hour of that movie, I was on the edge of my seat almost the entire time. From the throne room scene was great. The space battles were great. Luke's scene at the end was great. And I overall just really enjoyed the movie. And it was nice to see a Star Wars movie that, I guess, challenged me a little bit. Rogue One challenged me in a way by presenting a tone that was completely different and presenting a style of movie that was different. And again, I keep saying Dirty Dozen in space. It kind of had that vibe to it. But this movie was unlike anything that Rogue One or Force Awakens tried to do, and I respected it for that. And I want to see what Rian Johnson can do with his own trilogy, but because you give that man a blank slate, holy shit, we are in for some shit, I think. Some really wacky stuff. So, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about The Last Jedi. I'm still trying to process everything myself. I don't know how it'll hold up on repeated viewing. Again, I think it's very interesting that some people didn't really like it the first time they saw it and seemed to like it more the second time they saw it. I think that's very interesting. So maybe I'll be the opposite. Maybe I'll hate it like the more I watch it. I don't know. But yeah, The Last Jedi, it was a very unique theater experience. I'm not going to say it's the greatest Star Wars movie ever made. I will say, however, it is the most ambitious Star Wars movie ever made. It is the most daring Star Wars movie ever made. And I think that deserves recognition. And I think this is a Star Wars movie that's going to be talked about for decades. And is going to be debated for decades. And I kind of like that. And it's nice to see a movie, even if it's just striking a chord and it's splitting the fan base and doing things. I think to see a big budget blockbuster movie, like, getting that kind of reaction, I think is great. Because it seems like a lot of these big movies, it's either designed to be great, kind of like a Marvel movie, it's designed to be an audience pleaser, or it's an incompetent mess, like The Mummy, for example. I won't use Justice League, that's low-hanging fruit. I'll use The Mummy, and honestly, The Mummy pissed me off more than Justice League did. But, you kind of get, like, failed attempts at trying to be an audience pleaser, which is what The Mummy was. Or something like that. And it's very rare when you see big movies take risks. And to be honest, my two favorite movies this year are still War for the Planet of the Apes and Logan, which were movies based off pre-existing IPs that, were kind of designed, kind of set up to be big blockbuster type of movies based off, again, pre-existing IPs. And they took risks, and they did things that I wouldn't have expected them to do in a movie like that. And it worked, and they're great. And I want to see that more from big blockbusters. I don't want to see the factory assembly type of movie, and I'm kind of getting tired of that. You know, and it's nice to see movies kind of think outside the box a little bit and try and do different things. And in this movie, while not always successful, did try to do really, really different things. And for the most part, I really, really enjoyed it. So, Last Jedi gets a thumbs up from me. I thought it was a very enjoyable movie, but I would not be surprised if you hated it. It's one of those things. It's like, look, you're either on board with the madness or you're not, or you might have split feelings. You might not even know how you think about it. I literally, right after it was done, I turned to my friend who was sitting next to me, and I'm like, dude, I need like a week to process everything I saw, because this movie just... I don't even know where to start with this thing. And I'm just, this whole review, I've just been rambling. It's just me rambling away. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on The Last Jedi. I probably could go longer. I could probably do a whole nother hour talking about The Last Jedi, but I think I'll stop there. I think I've talked enough. This is probably the worst video I've ever made, but I don't care. I did enjoy The Last Jedi, and I want to make that point perfectly clear. I did enjoy it, and I can't wait to watch it again, just to kind of catch certain things and see if certain things hold up on repeated viewing. But let me know what you think down in the comments, because I think this is a movie that is ripe for debate and discussion, which I love. I love that aspect to it. So tell me what you think down below, and that is all I got to say now. So like I said, I'm wrapping up for 2017. Got a lot more videos lined up for you guys before I head out. But yeah, that's it for now. So toodaloo, everybody.